Hello, everyone. My name is Keith Parent. I am the CEO of Court Square Group. We are a managed service firm for life science companies, and this is the Driving the Business of Science podcast. I want to welcome you to this podcast. This podcast was put together as a way for us to talk about all the other things within the life science world that you don't necessarily think about when you're thinking about developing new drugs or new medical devices or any of the things in the life science world that we have to deal with. And what I try to do is we're trying to illustrate all the different companies involved in helping to get new therapeutics to the market. Today, we actually have with us Michael Joseph from Technium, the CEO of Technium and co-founder. And we're going to be talking to him about global networks and how they work and what we're doing for the life science world. With that being said, let me talk a little bit about Court Square, and then I'll introduce Michael, and then he can talk about Technium for a few minutes. So Court Square is a managed service firm. We manage infrastructure all the way from preclinical through manufacturing, mainly in the clinical and regulatory space, hosting lots of clinical trial software, TMF, EDM, anything that you're going to use from a regulated perspective. We also have a system called RegDocs 365, which is a content repository used in the life science world. We have a TMF and an EDM reference model. We have what we call Life Science Launchpad for startup companies. So our goal is now to bring a series of AI tools to the market as well with those products. With that being said, we recently had a project where I got the ability to meet up with a new company that we're actually using as part of that project. The company is Technium, and Michael Joseph and I have had a great relationship so far. And I want to introduce him. Michael.
Great, thank you, Keith, and it's a pleasure to be here and have this presentation with you. And I've been really enjoying this partnership because I think it really helps customers in a very different way because we have a very complementary solution to what Keith described, which has been helping our life science customers and now mutual life science customers for Technium's been in business for 25 years. And essentially, what we do is we drive data from the edge into the cloud using our unique connectivity solutions. So we have a regional partnership here with the Markley Group, which is a massive data center down in Boston, and we've built very unique connectivity solutions that drive access to cloud and AI. And then we have a long history of building global networks, leveraging cloud technology, originally leveraging global network solutions such as MPLS, which have now been transitioned to cloud connectivity and secure network services over SD-WAN. So I'm excited because Keith and I have really been leveraging our unique skills for customers, and great to be here.
Thank you, Michael. You know, what's interesting is when I first met Michael, one of the things that you always look at is as you look at companies you want to partner up with, and just the professionalism and the attitude and just having a lot of fun with companies is a good thing. You want to work with people you like to work with, and Michael's been fantastic to work with so far, and the company has been great to work with. The reason we started to work with Technium was because they have global solutions from a networking perspective. We're in a project together working for one of our joint clients where we're building a global network. We're actually helping a company that's trying to upend the entire clinical supply chain, Frontier Scientific Solutions. And what we're doing there is we're actually putting together a worldwide network with things in the cloud, things on site, in their warehouses to provide the largest capacity for shipping and storing pharmaceutical products, particularly for cold room. They've got a plant in Shannon, Ireland, and they've got one here in Wilmington, North Carolina, that I was just at this week and reviewing that. Their goal is to actually have the transportation across the globe within their environment. So we're going to have sites in America, a couple different sites in America. Next year we're doing, looks like we're going to do down south somewhere, and then looks like over in Asia Pac where we're going to have something maybe in South Korea that looks like we're going to plan out for next year. So with that being said, one of the things that I wanted to do from a Court Square perspective was find a partner that could help us with a follow the sun model, particularly from a 24/7 networking perspective. And dealing with networks, when you think about global networks, you think about if I have something over in Japan or South Korea, and I want to make sure that my network is running and the data is running back and forth between applications, you want to make sure that that stays up all the time. You want to make sure that from a technology perspective and a speed perspective, you don't have any issues with that. I can remember the first early days when I was at Pfizer Pharmaceuticals 30 years ago, and we used to worry about milliseconds between different sites in Asia Pac coming into the US and not being able to run certain queries on databases because they took too long. Those kind of things we try to totally mitigate through working with partners like Technium. And it's important that when I saw what we were going to be doing, particularly with the European locations, the US locations, South America, Asia Pac, I wanted to have a partner who actually understood dealing with all of those. Michael Joseph, can you just tell us a little bit about what you at Technium do and what it is that got you into doing global networks and how that works and how you've been doing that, particularly for the life science world?
Sure. So the real impetus for the company came out of we were in the service provider world. We worked for large um, internet service provider businesses, and what we noticed was within the commercial space, there really wasn't a similar level of service available that was at the network level. So meaning actually focusing on putting together a 24 by 7 solution in support of companies' needs because no one wants to wake up the next morning to an outage. The goal that we set forth in our company is to make sure that we're dealing with issues immediately through really good tools integrated with people and process and really excellent communications with customers. So the goal that we set forward was, and that's a really difficult mission to get that right. So we decided the best way to do that was to focus only on that. So our focus is exclusively on the connectivity of companies, and everything we do is around supporting customers and immediate response to their network needs and connectivity needs. So we do the full life cycle. We'll help design those networks and meet customers' needs for throughput and security and connectivity. And then we'll work closely with key partners like Court Square that are much closer to the customer's business. Our goal is to be a support system for when something goes wrong.
Fantastic. When we talk about global networks, tell me a little bit more about some of the networks you guys have already implemented. I know that um, some of your large clients in the life science space. Could you mention them? Can you talk about some of the work that you've done to help put some of their networks in place?
Sure, we have some great stories in that area. It's a kind of we're a little bit further out of it now, but coming out of COVID, one of our great stories was we helped design the Moderna global network and then operate that network and continue to operate that network. That network was probably the most unique experience of a life in this business because it was a time where there were two companies, and this company was a small company exploding and becoming a big company. And so we had to design a network that was both um, built with real speed because they were growing dramatically and had to get product out and had unbelievable reliability. At one point in time, they were making vaccine 24 by 7, 365 days a year. And even the smallest blip in the network could result in a loss of product, loss of production. They were working closely with the US government. They were working closely with the global, health organizations. And it was an incredibly stressful time for our company, but it was a really big accomplishment to actually build a network that supported the world in that way. So I think, kind of like you mentioned earlier, Keith, we love to work with people that are really good people too. And it was quite um, a moment to be part of something that actually had more significance than just technology.
I don't think you can underscore how important that was for you guys putting that network together and being able to get that data across, particularly with manufacturing delays and with getting, particularly when, they got approval for their drug and they had to get products shipped out and all the things that would happen across that. Most people just expect things to work, right? And that's
Right.
your goal. Your goal is to make them forget that they actually have something running out there. And that's only through a lot of due diligence. It's a huge architecture, setting those things up, making sure things are redundant across the board. There's no single point of failure. Data can go through multiple egress points. So tell me about some of the technologies you guys employ. Are there new things out there that you guys are looking at? You mentioned the Markley Group. Are there things you're doing there that have been instrumental in what you put together?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things. One of the things that I think is emerging, and Keith and I have lived through a couple of these booms, but the new boom is AI, right? And used to be cloud, and it has a similar trajectory in that everyone feels the need to be doing something with AI. So how does that lead to what Court Square does and what Technium does? Well, what we're doing right now is we have this um, network construction that's here in the Boston area. So for life sciences located here in Boston, we've built this way of establishing private off-internet connectivity to access AI and cloud. And the reason that's important, Keith mentioned milliseconds and performance. When you're looking at AI, one of the things that is super important is the combination of your privacy and security and also the performance. And what can you really see for performance? So I'll give you a really good example of this. We had a customer that was experimenting with the idea of recursive experimentation. They wanted to automate the methodology of experiment one is run, the output of experiment two leads into experiment three, etc. So they envisioned and spent a year and a half building a plan to have a single weekend where they would run 6 iterative experiments. And the goal was to achieve novel results, right? Not necessarily, cure cancer, but they wanted to prove a methodology that they thought could accelerate science. Well, this was built on top of a solution we architected for them, whereby their transport was clean all the way from their physical location over their connectivity to this fabric connection to Amazon and to their AI construction, which is in an alternative cloud. And it needed to be clean because it couldn't be impacted by the larger internet. It couldn't be impacted by performance situations that might arise unplanned for by them. And it was such a successful exercise that it actually formed a whole new company that is doing iterative experimentation as a venture. So what I would say is an answer to your question is we're very excited about the opportunity to help companies architect secure, private, predictable networks on a local and global scale.
That's fantastic. And I know some of the workloads that we have some CryoSpark applications that we help some of our customers with, and they're
Right.
using terabyte-sized files, image files that they get from electron microscopes that they're using to analyze multiple images at the same time. And it's just volumes and volumes and volumes of data, and you don't realize how much you have to pump through a network when you're doing that. So
Right.
it's crucial that you have the big enough pipes, you have the fast enough speeds, all the things that really are necessary when you need it. And whether you're working within an AWS environment or your own data center environment, it doesn't matter. You may be getting data from one place and putting it in another or feeding it into a system somewhere else. They all have to work seamlessly together. And I think that's where, we come in. And when I say we, I say a collective we, those service providers in the life science world who are dealing with all those little pieces, the network backbone, the CPU computing environment, all the things that help those things go. Even the AI people, we're doing a lot of AI work right now in our RegDocs environment, helping to get that through. And I see how important that is to our customer base to help develop new drugs faster. And I think that's really important. Talk to me a little bit about security and where you guys deal with security in these global networks, because everybody worries about the fact that I'm here in the US and there's all these GDPR requirements over in Europe, and there's issues that people worry about, bad actors getting into things. How are you guys dealing with that?
Well, I think our sort of security focus and value is foundational, right? So what we always say is that our goal is to set up the right outline of security for a business and then manage it on behalf of the business. It's again why it's very necessary for us to work with a company like yours, Keith, because our level of understanding of the business is more setting up the correct, call it trusted pathways and security. But unless we have the understanding of the governance of the actual functionality of the business, so we can put the right rules in place, we do not get into the world of the business governance. We get into, call it best practice security. Here's a good example for you. Where we would come in, and then I'll talk about where I think you guys would come in, because security is everybody's job, right? It's your job, it's my job, it's the customer's job. So our job is to set up, let's say, for example, you are using an AI framework and you have a private instance of AI. And you do that for a reason. You want to make sure that the data you're putting into your AI is yours and it's not public domain. So we need to help you and put the right controls in place to make sure that the data that gets put into your AI is not taken out and published publicly. So we will set up the framework for all of that to ensure that that can't happen, but it's only as good as the information we have. So if an organization like Court Square says, here's the policy objects, here's the groups, here's the responsibilities, here's who can access reg docs, here's who can't access reg docs. As we put these pieces together, our job is to be, call it the canary in the coal mine. Something doesn't look right here. This doesn't match what you've told us is supposed to happen. And to set up, to guide you into the decisions you need to make at the business level that we can translate down to the, call it the foundation level. So that's our objective. And I think it's kind of akin to, if you think about, let's say, a video security system. We're the system that sets off the alarm and identifies a risk to your house, but we don't know that's your uncle, right? We wouldn't know that. So it's important that those kind of business dimensions come in. And I think where we've been really, really helping companies think properly as they adopt new technologies is start with your security principles first. Don't say later, oh, wait, I should have separated this traffic or identified this as intellectual property. Have those conversations, create those segregations or create those structures, and then your security foundation is in place.
It's funny you talk about that because I know I've been involved with lots of different security incidents where there's always bad actors out there trying to do things. And whether it's a DDoS attack and they take down a network, our main goal is to make it as easy as possible for our clients to get to their data and to use all their systems.
Right.
What people don't realize is we're dealing every single day. We deal with more and more web-based solutions and cloud-based solutions, and we're dealing with multiple clouds, tying them together, making sure the data gets across from one place to another. How do I get to my data? How do I keep my data internal to our network? All those things we have to think about. And I think it's that security aspect that both of us have to deal with day in and day out and make sure we build in from the ground up.
Exactly.
So,
Right.
it's one of those things that we're always on top of, and all the way down to that final document that somebody's going to try to open, right? Those are the
Right.
things that we have to deal with on a very regular basis. So, um, you know, from my perspective, it's been a pleasure having my team work with yours. I know that when we work with a lot of the big pharma companies, we're dealing with multiple layers of network security within any one organization. It may take us, weeks just to get through different groups within a big pharma company, because each one has their own process, their own procedure, and how they have to work. But when you finally set something up, we know that it's going to be secure. We know that only the people that they really want to get into that are going to be able to get into that. And because we also know that there's going to be people out there that their whole function in life is trying to break into your network. So
Right.
our goal has to make sure that those people can't do that
Right. Exactly.
through any means possible. So our goal is to put the right things in place to make sure the right people get to the right data, and effectively and efficiently. So, working with your team, it's been fantastic to be able to do that. Can you tell us about some of the pitfalls that you've led to outages or unexpected failures that you've seen in over the years?
Sure. I mean, some are vigilance, right? So in the sense of I mentioned Moderna, the let's call it most high stress, high wire item that I can ever remember in my career dealing with is we were mid-production, early days, vaccine in their main production facility, their main manufacturing facility, and we identified that there was a memory leak issue with critical network equipment, and we needed to work with the vendor and kind of like a high wire act, gradually migrating traffic off of entities that were having this issue onto other entities in the network until we were able to patch and repair the item. We lost zero production. It was 100% up the entire time while we were addressing this issue. So some of the things that I think are our biggest value and are important to have on your side is that technical skill and ability to troubleshoot an issue that just materializes. If you look at kind of the domain of issues that affect companies and cause outages, there is a category of them that are just from actually knowing that something anomalous is happening. Could be increased CPU, reduced memory, sudden bursts of traffic. Anything we can do to instrument that, we've tried to learn from an ad over the years to do that. So some of the most difficult issues are the ones that we didn't plan for that came in. And then I would say the other one is, and this is the category and it's always been 80% of the issues, change. So whether or not it's a exciting dimension of the job of network management, the most important thing to get right is changes, because you have to make changes. You have to make new security fixes. You have to add new policies. You have to add new network elements and connectivity. And one of the things that I think has been a powerful force and a long history of getting it wrong to get it right is learning how to do changes in the most prescriptive, responsible manner. So again, giving you an example of an outage, 80% of all outages are caused by change. That's been a statistic that's been true forever. So
Right.
that says that you can deal with 80% of your risk by being really good at changes. So, and again, I think this is an always ongoing process of how could we have done better? How could we have tested that change better? How could we have implemented that change and rolled it back when it didn't work better? Because you have to plan for failure. The whole job of managing a network, and Keith, you and I both know this very well from our long career, is managing failure. Managing
Mhm.
networks is all about managing failure. Build for expecting failure, plan for when something you did causes a failure and fix it quickly. So my two answers are issues that just arise that you have to have the tools to identify, and then the whole domain of changes and how can you do those as well as possible.
It's funny, Michael, because I tell customers a lot of times when we first start with a new customer, I said, I can guarantee you that there's going to be some issue.
Mhm.
I said, but I can also guarantee you that we're going to handle that issue. And it's how we support you and how we deal with that issue that's really important, because it's IT. Things happen. Software goes awry, hardware goes
Yeah.
down. But we know how to deal with those. And I think it's important that we train our people on how to deal with that stuff. We understand how to try to get it back up as quickly as possible, how to deal with having redundant and secondary and third and tertiary ways of egress into anything. And you design that in. And I think that's the important part, that people have to realize that in our world, we're thinking about that day in and day out from the very get-go. So putting world-class global network and computing environments together is something that both Technium and Square are very adept at and are used to doing. And I think that when you think about the business of science, science is a global process now. So being able to work with those companies on a global basis and provide for them, even if it's a small company in California or a small company in Cambridge, they still need to have a global network set up and understand that they're going to get
Right.
the same network that they would if they were a Pfizer or a Moderna or Merck. So those are the kind of things that, because we have that experience, we can bring those to the table for them. Well, we're running about toward the end of our time here, Michael. Do you have any last thoughts and thoughts about when we're driving the business of science, how we can help these life science companies to do a better job, and what Technium can keep doing to kind of improve over anybody else that's out there.
Well, I actually think you started off this chat with my strongest feeling these days, which is treat the IT solution collegially. And what I love about you, Keith, and your company and the spirit of what you guys do, and what we hope to seek in customers that want to be partners with both of us, is a collegial approach. You mentioned IT and science and the difficulties of both of those things and getting them right. If you treat each other as colleagues, if you care about getting to the root cause and the best experience and the ultimate goal of the science you're serving, the collegial approach versus the combative approach, working on best of best. I trust your team's vision of reg docs and all of your business knowledge and long experience in life sciences. I think we both seek others that are even beyond our two companies that share that approach. And customers of ours will get our best because we want a collegial solution. And the reason I say that specifically as it relates to the network world is we are plumbers, right? We don't function without others in this world. We're trying to build you the best possible connectivity, but we need input and we need partnerships, and we want to just be good at what we do, as you do.
Yeah, it's funny. I tell everybody, think about a cruise ship that's on the water. Everybody's on the cruise ship and they got these ballrooms and they got these beautiful bars and everything. They walking around and they're sunbathing, all this stuff. Everything above the waterline, that's all the glitz and glamour and everything. We're the guys below the waterline. We're the guys that keep that ship going.
We're in the suspenders, Keith.
Nobody wants to see us, but they want to make sure it keeps running. And that's what we do. So I want to thank you again for your time today, Michael. This has been fantastic. I encourage everybody to talk to Technium. It's a great company to work with. Michael Joseph, you've been fantastic to work with as a partner, and I look forward to the continued relationship for a long time to come. Great. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you.